I'm begging you to never do these things for men. I know some of you are thinking, well, you've already told us to do nothing for men, so what else is there even to do? This is where problems begin. Even when you want to do nothing for men, there are very stubborn, very common mistakes that only appear when you actually like that very specific guy. When you find the guy that you really want to be with, your subconscious mind begins to push you to do things without you even realizing what's happening until it's too late. I'm making this video to stop you from making any of these very common but very costly mistakes. In each point, I'm going to explain to you what action you should never do, what it negatively communicates to the man that you're with, and why you're never going to do it again. By the end of this video, no matter how much you like a guy, you will never accidentally do these things for a man that are guaranteed to ruin the entire relationship. This first one's gonna make you uncomfortable. Never be intimate with a man because you believe that's what will keep him interested in you. This is wrong for so many reasons. Intimacy is a two-way street, meaning if you're not prepared for it, then you have no obligation to participate in it. And this is why I say a lot of these things happen specifically when you really like a guy. Because even without the external pressure from that man, when you really want to be with that guy, you start to become extremely paranoid about the idea of him not liking you, or even worse, losing interest in you. So it becomes very easy to create this internal pressure centered around the timeline of when you guys will become physically intimate. This also stems from a limiting belief that men can only be engaged in a romantic relationship if you're offering them physical intimacy, which is completely untrue. Here's the difference though. The right man for you will still be engaged in a romantic relationship even if you're not prepared for intimacy on the same timeline that he is. The worst part is, the moment you speed up your physical intimacy timeline out of fear of losing him, it will put you in an even more intense state of fear afterwards. Because once you're finally physically intimate with him, you'll have this intense fear that, oh, he didn't enjoy it, or maybe he flat out never really wanted you and he was only using you for that experience. This fear stems from the fact that you were never truly ready for that step in the relationship, and so after you do it, you feel even more guilt in recognizing that this was more for him than it was ever for you. This next one literally terrifies me how often I see women do this for men they like. Never neglect your tribe because you want to spend more time with that man. Your tribe consists of your family and friends, the loved ones that care for you unconditionally. These are the people that were there for you before you started dating a new guy, and they will be there for you after you start dating a new guy. The problem is when you get really into a guy and everything about him in this relationship just feels perfect, you want to live in that dream for as long as possible. What starts to happen is the amount of dopamine you feel being around him and feeling in love with him can't seem to be matched by the way you feel when you're just hanging out with your friends or family. So that man starts to feel like a drug, and you ask yourself, why would I spend time with friends and family who don't give me as intense of a high as I receive when I spend time with that man? All of a sudden, all of your free time you end up spending with this guy, and the family members and girlfriends that you used to regularly text, call, hang out with, you barely see, and they barely ever hear from you anymore. Subsequently, after a while of you neglecting those relationships, your friends and family slowly but surely stop reaching out to you as often as they used to. And eventually you find yourself in a position where you've isolated yourself with this guy as your only strong and relevant relationship in any part of your life. But then what happens when that guy that you've made your sole source of happiness decides that he wants to talk to or spend time with his friends or family instead of you? Now all of a sudden you're extremely hurt, you're offended, you're distraught, and you literally don't know what to do with your life when that man isn't giving you attention. From that point forward, it becomes extremely easy to turn into this really ugly, really desperate, jealous, stalking version of yourself that has no life of your own. And suddenly, the most interesting thing going on in your life is what's going on in his. If I ever catch you doing this for a man after we discuss it, I'm gonna come to your house, take my belt off, and give you a whooping. And I mean that. You will never fake your sexual pleasure to make a man feel better about himself. Never fake moan, and never, ever fake climax. It will ruin the relationship for two very important reasons. The longer you fake your pleasure, the deeper a hole you will dig yourself. The longer this acting job goes on for, you'll feel like it's more difficult to finally admit the truth, which is that you've been faking it, which is only going to cause you to fake your pleasure more because you're even more scared that he'll find out how long you've been faking it for. The other big reason that this is horrible is because the longer the faking goes on for, the further apart the two of you are from understanding what pleasure is for you. What he believes you find pleasurable, like the positions, dirty talk, pace, you don't actually find that pleasurable, but he's operating from a place that you do. So in his quest to be a better partner to you, he attempts to do more of what he thinks you like in order to please you more. But the problem is what he thinks you like, you actually don't like because you've been faking it for him this entire time. He's inside of you thinking he's killing it, thinking he's the man, thinking he's got the best D game in the entire country, and you're laying there staring at the ceiling, counting ceiling tiles, waiting for him to finish so that you can take a shower. The next thing I never want to see you doing for a man is auditioning for a girlfriend game show. What I mean by that is you're trying to prove to a man that you can be a good girlfriend by doing all the things a girlfriend or wife would do before he's ever even expressed interest in making you his girlfriend. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with doing nice things for a man who is already investing in you. But there's a difference between that and doing things for a guy because you hope that it will make him recognize how good you would be as a girlfriend, and then subsequently hoping that makes him want to make you his girlfriend. For example, you're talking to a guy and you can tell his feelings for you are very meh. He hasn't really expressed interest in dating you or making you his girlfriend. You're just kinda there. Then because you sense that, you decide that when you go sleep over at his house, you're gonna wow him by making him dinner, cleaning his dirty ass room, and washing all of his dirty underwear that's sitting in the hamper and around his bed. In your mind, you're thinking, when he sees how good it is being with me, he'll for sure want to wife me so that he can get this all the time. But the problem is, men know how much investment they're putting or not putting into you as well. So when you're over there cooking and cleaning at his place, he's thinking, damn, she's really doing everything for me and I'm giving her nothing in return. Only a desperate woman would do so much for a man who isn't really showing her any interest or doing anything for her. Why don't I just take advantage of this desperation and have her continue to do everything for me while I continue to do nothing for her? Here's another thing that I want you to never do for men. Change your physical appearance simply based on what you believe that guy wants you to look like. Now, if a guy happens to suggest to you a look that you genuinely feel looks good on you, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're in a position where you've never wanted to change this aspect of your physical appearance, but you've noticed that he likes something very particular, and then you decide to change that thing about yourself, hoping that it will cause him to be more attracted to you. For example, you're brunette with curly hair, but you notice all the girls he likes, all the girls on his For You page, all of his ex-girlfriends are all blondes with straight hair. Up until this point in your life, you've never had an issue with your hair color or hairstyle, but now you change your hair color to blonde and straight because you think it will make that guy like you more or be more attracted to you based on what you think he desires. Now that you change your hair color and style to what you believe he would like to see on you, you no longer have the ability to look at yourself in the mirror and judge whether you genuinely feel attractive or not, because you've now made changes to your physical appearance that isn't based in what you want or don't want. It's based in what that man wants. So in order for you to gain validation on whether or not you're attractive on a day-to-day basis, you literally need him to validate your attractiveness. You lose your own ability to judge your own attractiveness because the changes you've made of yourself aren't rooted in what you want, they're rooted in what someone else wants and deems to be attractive on you. Then eventually you'll always need that man that you made those physical changes for to tell you if he approves of your physical changes. Just that fast, you've turned into the girl constantly asking your man every 5 minutes if he thinks that you look pretty because you truly don't know the answer to that question anymore. Next, I want you to never cancel your already existing plans, whether it be with friends or family members, to be his last minute plan. When you really like a guy, it's extremely hard to say no to that guy. But especially when you like a guy, you have to make sure you say no when you should be saying no. Because when guys learn that regardless of whether or not you have other plans, that you'll always drop whatever you're doing to be with him, they stop putting their best foot forward to access you. They learn over time. There's no point in planning or scheduling when they're gonna see you. There's also no point trying to make it fancy, interesting, or exciting in order to get your attention to make you want to spend more time with him. They know that regardless of what they ask you to do and when they ask you to do it, you will always be down to spend time with them. When you show men who haven't earned it that they are the most important thing in your life, they will always take advantage of that. After a while, he'll become accustomed to being able to message you the night of or even an hour before and get you delivered to his door like DoorDash. Once he experiences that level of convenience with you, he will never want to go back to putting in any effort into getting access to you. This next mistake happens so naturally, it's almost undetectable. When you start seeing a guy and you learn more about him, you start to learn what type of personality he has and also what type of personalities he gravitates towards. Now, there's nothing wrong with that because each one of us gravitates towards different things. But here's what makes it an issue. When you realize that key parts of your personality don't mesh well with what you think he likes in a personality, you then change aspects of your personality to better suit that specific man. For example, you love dark humor, so you make a lot of dark humor jokes, but you notice he doesn't seem to be as into your dark humor as you are. So you start suppressing that side of your personality because you don't think that side of your personality is going to be very attractive to him. But the longer that this process goes on for, the more and more of your personality that you begin to chip away at in order to sculpt yourself into exactly what he likes. Eventually, you become a completely different person because you've changed so many aspects of your personality. This causes you to stop feeling like you're being your authentic self. Now in your relationship, you constantly feel like you're putting on an act, which becomes exhausting. Just that fast. The personality that you changed to get into this relationship is now the reason why you don't feel seen and you consistently feel emotionally drained. Because every second of every day that you're with him, you're putting on an act that can only last for so long. I want you to listen very closely to this point. Never, ever accept a man's habits that you know you can't spend the rest of your life dealing with. I promise you, the habits that you see him having when you meet him are the exact same habits you'll experience when you're in a long-term relationship with him. For example, if you know you're not a drinker and you hate that this guy you started dating gets blackout drunk every weekend he goes out with his boys, you need to recognize that this habit is the reason you cannot be in a relationship with him. The worst thing you can do is adopt the mentality that even though I don't want to deal with this habit for the rest of my life, I'll deal with it for now because I like this guy a lot right now. Down the road, you'll be frustrated in your relationship with this guy because you'll spend the entire rest of the relationship trying to get him to break a habit which he never intended to break in the first place. And because at that point in the relationship, you'll have invested so much time and energy, you'll feel like you can't just walk away, even though these habits that he possesses currently are literally driving you crazy. Next, you are never going to give a man your availability before he has prompted you by asking you for your availability. I can't tell you how many times I've seen women do this for men. You think to yourself, oh, he hasn't asked me out in a while. He hasn't even mentioned the idea of making plans to see each other. I could see this as a sign of how much interest he does or doesn't have in me, or I could send him a message telling him that I'm gonna be available on Saturday night from 7 p.m. to midnight, and maybe when I tell him that, even though he hasn't asked, he'll realize magically that he also is free at that time, and he'll realize magically that he wants to spend that time that he now realizes he's free with me. Here's the issue with that though. Even if that does work out for you, you don't actually know if you're spending time with that guy because he wanted to spend that time with you, or if you're spending time with that guy because he feels sorry for you. Once you do the work of giving him your availability before he's ever asked you, you'll begin to make him lazy because he knows even if he doesn't plan or schedule anything, eventually you'll get restless enough that you'll do the planning and the scheduling on your own. You'll plan the day, you'll plan the time, you'll even plan the location. You'll plan all the itinerary, and all he'll have to do is say okay. Never, ever in your life will you attempt to lead a man that has no direction for himself. If you meet a guy and he is lazy, always procrastinating, never has a plan, leave him exactly where he is and go be with a different man. Don't start doing things like creating a resume for him and applying to jobs for him because you think that if he gets more money, he'll be in a better position in his life, he'll feel better about himself, he'll treat me better, we'll be in a better relationship, I'll have a better man. If that man isn't bothering to better his own life or come up with some sort of plan or strategy to do so, there's no need for you to worry about him. I promise you, when you try to provide a man with direction who has none, two very horrible things will happen. He'll waste a bunch of your time and energy not accomplishing anything that you set in motion for him, and he'll end up resenting you because he feels emasculated by the fact he didn't have the skill to be able to do it on his own and needed you to come save him. And as crazy as it sounds, he'll literally begin to take the fact that you're trying to help him as a diss towards his manhood.